Welcome, everyone. My name is Renee Targus. I'm the editor for Agribusiness Global, and today we are talking to Jim DeLisi, Chief of Fanwood Chemical Inc. We're going to be having an update on what's happening with tariffs and also President Trump's visit to Southeast Asia and China. So welcome, Jim.
Nice to be here, Renee.
Great. Thanks for coming back. And we've had several episodes before this. And so this episode, we are focusing on President Trump's last week. He had a visit to some Southeast Asian countries and China. How did that go? And how does that affect the crop protection industry?
Well, as many people know, President Trump was in Asia last week. He was in Japan. He was in Malaysia. He was in South Korea. In South Korea, he met with Chairman Xi of China. And they came up with a couple of agreements. One of them was China agreed to postpone any significant moves on rare earth elements and the materials that contain them for a year. This was really important because really it put the whole world in jeopardy of not having those magnets and products. So that was important accomplishment during the meeting. And Chinese also agreed to buy an awful lot of soybeans, and not only for this year, but for 25, 26, 27, and 28, which hopefully will take some pressure off of soybean farmers in the United States. It was expected that eventually Chinese would need to buy U.S. soybeans because it appears as if there literally isn't enough soybeans in the world for them to function without some material from the United States, but it's great to have the confirmation. Oh, they also agreed to try to interfere with the export of fentanyl and fentanyl precursors, which is really hurting and frankly killing an awful lot of U.S. citizens. So that was important. In return, President Trump has agreed to reduce the tariff piece on fentanyl from 20% to 10%. And he's also agreed to send some chips and some other things. That reduction in that tariff from 10% to 10% does put India in an interesting position, because now there are a whole series of products where the net tariff on China is lower than India. For instance, on formulated aromatic chemicals, the China tariff total will now be 10%, will now be 51.5%, while it's 56.5% from India, and on non-aromatics, it's 50% for China and 55% for India. It also hits pretty hard in a couple places where the 301 tariffs on China are low, like dicamba and things like that. So listeners are urged to reevaluate where they stand on the total tariff impact with that change. Have not seen orders on customs to make the change on entries, so we have to look out for that. Should happen over the next few days. There is a White House announcement, but there is no customs announcements yet to make the change. The other couple things that happened is the agreement on reciprocal trades agreements were signed with Malaysia and Cambodia. It will now be up to Secretary Lutnick of the Commerce Department to determine how he's going to handle Annexes 2 and 3. Theoretically, it should kick in Annex 3, but it's at the discretion of the Secretary, which is liable to be quite a chore, because with the shutdown of the government, the United States government still shut down, I'm not too sure how many people Lutnick has in the International Trade Administration Division of Commerce to figure out how to implement this thing. So we're going to have to wait and watch and see how that works. There were also framework agreements with Thailand and Vietnam. So a lot occurred last week and a lot more to come.
Great. You mentioned what was going on with the tariffs with China and what kind of position that puts India in. So how greatly do you think that that's going to affect? I mean, India's been, we were struggling with oversupply, and now this. How much do you think that that's going to impact the crop protection industry in that country?
It could have a significant impact. There is no indication that anything is tariff-wise and agreement-wise with India is in the offing in the short term. So for an ill-defined period of time, India is going to be at a disadvantage in many products. Oh, there's one other thing that surprisingly was agreed to with China. The so-called COVID exception list that was supposed to expire on November 27th has been extended till November 10, 2026. There is one agrochemical or one product on that list that impacts the ag chemical industry is NBPT, which is used in fertilizer as a fertilizer enhancement. And so I know that there were some others. It's all, for all intents and purposes, all the NBPT used in the United States is Chinese. It's been exempt to the 25%, and it will remain exempt for another year. And I know there were others looking at it because of that tariff. Those efforts will probably get pushed back.
Okay. What about this week? I know we've got some things going on with the U.S. courts. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, this is a huge week, and everybody needs to watch the news on Wednesday night. The IEEPA tariff case before the U.S. Supreme Court is the oral arguments that are to be heard Wednesday, and hopefully we will get some idea of how the Supreme Court is leaning. Frankly, some have written that the actions by China over the last couple of weeks with the rare earth metals will strengthen the administration's hand at the Supreme Court because there really was a need for an emergency response to that, and the threatened 100% tariff was that response. There have been a couple of other instances where the emergency was evident, whereas the other side of it is it's hard to imagine that the 10% tariff that Mr. Trump added to Canada because of the ads that were being run using Ronald Reagan was an emergency, and the 40% tariff on Brazil for Bolsonaro, it's hard to figure that that's an emergency. But the whole thing will be argued out before the Supreme Court on Wednesday. And I, for one, am anxiously waiting to see the way the judges treat the case. It will be important to determine how the next couple of years go. Everybody needs to be reminded, though, that the 301 tariffs and the 232 tariffs, which in 232 includes copper, copper salts, aluminum and steel. The 301 is from 2018. They are not impacted by what's happening on Wednesday.
Okay.
In the case of China, Mr. Trump could probably continue, could use his 301 authority to do what he wants to do. If it looks like the Supreme Court is going to go against the tariffs. Mr. Besson was on one of the Sunday shows yesterday. When asked about plans, if it looks like the administration is going to lose, he more or less punted and said, basically, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. He seemed very confident that the administration will win. We'll know on Wednesday night.
Okay, that's going to be a big one. So thank you so much, Jim, for giving us an update, and we'll be checking in with you later on this week.